There is a kind of suffering that does not merely break your life, it breaks the very supports beneath you. A storm comes, and the wind is loud, but the silence afterward is louder still. A trial arrives that strips away comfort, presence, and the simple human touch that says, "I am with you." Instead, the silence is filled with accusation. This is the suffering Job knew. This is the suffering many know today. Hear now the tale of a man called Job, a man of the land, upright and blameless, who feared God and turned from evil. He was prosperous, honored, and surrounded by family and friends. Yet the heavens were not silent about him. In the courts of the unseen, a test was set, and the tempests of trial were loosed upon his house. In the beginning, Job's life was a canopy of blessing. His fields were full, his children gathered in joy. His days were long and his name was esteemed. But the hand of calamity came like a thief in the night. Wealth vanished, children perished, health failed, and the man who had been a pillar became a ruin. Job rose, tore his robe, and shaved his head. He fell to the ground and worshipped. With a voice that trembled between despair and faith he said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Yet the grief that followed was not only loss, it was the loneliness of being misunderstood. When Job opened his mouth to lament, those nearest to him became his judges. Friends who once sat with him now stood at a distance and spoke as if they held the ledger of heaven. They came with answers, with certainty, with the sharp instruments of doctrine. They said, "Surely you have sinned. This is punishment. Repent, confess, and all will be well." Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, voices of tradition and reason, rose to speak. Their words were polished, their logic neat. They wrapped suffering in cause and effect, as if the world were a simple scale where sin and sorrow balanced in plain arithmetic. They could not bear the mystery. They could not sit in the dark with Job. So they explained it away. They accused him of hidden guilt. They measured his silence and found it wanting. They turned his lament into a confession he had not made. They offered counsel that cut deeper than the affliction itself. Job answered with thunder and with tears. He did not hide his questions. He named his anguish. He demanded an audience with the Almighty. He spoke of the injustice he felt, of the bitterness that rose in his chest, of the nights when sleep fled and the days when hope seemed a stranger. "Why," he cried, "do the wicked prosper while the righteous suffer? Where is the justice of the Most High?" His words were not rebellion alone. They were the raw language of a heart that still sought God even as it broke. After long debate, after the friends had spoken and Job had answered, the heavens opened. The voice of God came not as a courtroom verdict, but as a storm of questions. From the whirlwind, the Lord spoke, and the cosmos itself became the sermon. God did not answer with the neat formulas of Job's friends. He did not reduce suffering to a moral equation. Instead, he asked of Job the mysteries of creation. "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Who shut the sea behind doors? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades?" The questions were not meant to shame Job into silence, but to widen his view, to show that the world is vaster than human judgment, and that the Maker's wisdom surpasses human explanation. And then the Lord turned his gaze upon the friends. Their words, though cloaked in piety, had been hollow. They had spoken without knowledge, had defended a tidy theology at the expense of a wounded man. God rebuked them for their cold comfort and for their presumption. The Almighty commanded them to offer sacrifice and to ask Job to pray for them. The one they had condemned became their intercessor. The man who had been judged was raised up as the instrument of reconciliation. God restored Job's fortunes, giving him double of all he had lost. He blessed the latter days of Job more than the beginning. He gave him new children, new wealth, and long years to live and to see the fruit of his endurance. But the restoration was more than material. It was a restoration of dignity, of relationship, of the right ordering of compassion. Job's life was healed not because his pain had been explained away, but because God had seen, had heard, and had acted. The wounds were not erased from memory, but they were transformed into a testimony of grace. This story is not merely ancient history. It is a mirror held up to our own age. There is a cruelty in the world that uses God's name to avoid the discomfort of another's sorrow. There are voices that say, "You must have done something wrong, pray harder, stop complaining." These are the modern echoes of Job's friends, quick to judge, slow to sit, eager to explain, reluctant to weep. Blame is easier than presence. Certainty is easier than compassion. But God is offended by cold comfort. He is moved by honest lament. He defends the wounded, honors the lamenter, and rebukes the self-righteous who would make suffering a moral failing. If you have been judged in your grief, if someone used God's name to silence your sorrow, hear this: God saw you. God heard your cry. Your pain is not proof of guilt. Your suffering is not a sign of divine displeasure. Your story is not finished. Let the church be a place that sits in the ashes with the broken. Let our theology be a hand that holds, not a sword that wounds. Let us learn from Job to remain tender, to pray for those who hurt us, and to choose healing over revenge. Job's life ends not in bitterness, but in blessing. He prays for his friends. He receives restoration. He lives to see his children's children. The God who defended Job is the same God who defends the humble and the hurting. He is nearer than our loneliness, kinder than our accusers, and more faithful than our fears. So take heart. If you have been abandoned in your suffering, you are not unseen. If you have been judged instead of comforted, your wounds are not the final word. The God of Job is with you, to hear, to hold, and to restore. If this reflection moved you, please like this video and subscribe for more cinematic narrations and reflections. Share this with someone who needs to know they are not alone.